Once upon a time in a small town, a kind-hearted young man named Jake lived a simple life. He worked at a local grocery store and spent his evenings stargazing. Jake was fascinated by the stars, dreaming of adventures beyond his own world. Each night he would lie on his roof, looking at the bright lights and imagining the lives of different beings out there. One clear night, while gazing at the sky, Jake noticed something unusual. A bright light zipped across the horizon, leaving a shimmering trail. Without thinking, he darted down the stairs and ran towards the nearby forest, where he thought the light had landed. As he approached, he heard faint whimpers. When he reached the spot, Jake found a strange sight. A woman, unlike anyone he had ever seen, lay on the ground. She had green skin that shimmered in the moonlight, and large, gentle eyes that looked hungry and scared. Jake's heart went out to her. He could see that she was in distress. "Are you okay?" Jake asked cautiously, stepping closer. The woman looked up at him, her eyes wide. I'm lost," she said in a soft voice, her language flowing like music. "I'm hungry." "Hungry? Oh no, come with me," Jake said quickly. He held out his hand, and to his surprise, she took it. Together, they walked back to his home. As they entered, Jake remembered his mother always said to take care of those in need. He quickly went to the fridge and pulled out some food. He offered her a sandwich and a glass of water. She looked at the food with curiosity, sniffing it as if it were something magical. "What is this?" she asked innocently. "It's food. Here, try it," Jake encouraged. She bit into the sandwich, and her eyes lit up. "Delicious," she exclaimed, devouring it eagerly. Jake watched in amazement as the small woman enjoyed the simple meal. He felt happiness seeing her smile for the first time. "Thank you, kind human," she said, her expression warm. "I am Ilara from the planet Veyron. We traveled through space, but my ship crashed. I was searching for food and warmth." Jake felt a wave of compassion wash over him. "You can stay here for as long as you need. I'll help you fix your ship." Ilara's eyes widened. "You would help me?" "Of course, everyone deserves help," Jake replied with a grin. Days turned into weeks as Jake and Ilara worked together. Each evening, they tinkered with the damaged spacecraft hidden in the woods. Ilara had incredible knowledge of engineering, but she needed Jake's help to gather parts from town. Together, they made a great team. During their time together, they shared stories about their lives. Jake learned about Ilara's home, where the skies were purple and the trees sang melodies. Ilara listened to Jake's stories about Earth and his dreams of adventure. They laughed, they learned, and their friendship grew deeper. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat outside under the stars. Ilara looked at the sky and said, "You know, I used to think my life was destined to be lonely, but since coming here, I have found friendship, warmth, and joy." Jake felt warmth in his chest. "You're not just a friend. You mean a lot to me, Ilara." The air between them grew thick with an unspoken feeling. Ilara turned to him, her eyes shining like stars. "I feel the same way. You have shown me kindness that I have never known." Jake's heart raced. He took her hand gently and said, "Maybe we could explore more than just the stars together. I know it might sound strange, but I think I could love you." Tears sparkled in Ilara's eyes. "You do not find it odd? A human and an alien? Our worlds are so different." Jake smiled. Love knows no boundaries. It only cares about connection. Under the blanket of stars, they shared their first kiss, sealing a bond that neither had expected. Days passed, and little by little, their friendship blossomed into a beautiful love story. As they worked on the ship, they discovered more than equipment and tools. They discovered each other's dreams, fears, and hopes for the future. Jake often talked about traveling the world, and Alara shared tales of exploring distant galaxies. Finally, one bright morning, they completed the repairs on her spacecraft. Alara looked at the ship with a twinkle of hope. "I can go home now." "But I don't want to leave you, Jake." Jake felt a lump in his throat. "You could stay with me, you know? We could find a way to make this work." Alara thought for a moment and said, "I could take you to my planet. You would love it there. We could explore the universe together." Jake's eyes lit up. "Yes, let's travel the stars." They embraced, brimming with anticipation. As they prepared for her departure, Jake realized how much Alara had changed his life. He had gone from a lonely dreamer to someone who had found love from beyond the stars. On the day of their journey, Alara's ship glowed brightly. She turned to Jake, her heart racing. "Will you join me on this adventure?" Jake took a step forward, his heart full. "Yes, I want to be with you, wherever you go." With that, they stepped into the ship together. As it soared into the sky, they held hands, their laughter blending as they ventured into the great unknown. Two souls from different worlds united by love, ready to make memories among the stars. And so, from a chance meeting on a quiet night to adventures far beyond, Alara and Jake embraced their destiny together, defying the odds and believing in the magic of love. The year is 2242. Mark Olson, a kind-hearted astrophysicist, lived a quiet life in a small town nestled beside the sprawling New Mexico desert. His days were filled with star charts, complex equations, and the quiet hum of his observatory. One unusually still night, as Mark was calibrating his telescope, he noticed a strange object plummeting from the sky. It wasn't a meteor. This was something else, something controlled. Curiosity overriding caution, he jumped into his battered pickup truck and sped towards the crash site. He found a small metallic pod half buried in the sand. It was emitting a faint rhythmic pulse. Hesitantly, Mark approached, his heart pounding in his chest. As he circled the pod, a section hissed open, revealing a ramp leading into the darkness. He hesitated, then grabbed his flashlight and stepped inside. The interior was cramped and dimly lit. At the far end, huddled in a corner, was a figure. It was a woman, but not like any woman Mark had ever seen. She was slender, with skin that shimmered with a faint, iridescent blue. Large, violet eyes dominated her face, and her hair was a cascade of silver strands that seemed to glow in the dim light. She was shivering, her clothes torn and dusty. Fear and exhaustion were etched on her delicate features. Mark, despite his initial shock, felt an overwhelming surge of compassion. He knelt beside her and spoke softly. "Are you all right? Can you understand me?" The woman looked at him, her eyes wide and confused. She shook her head slightly, then pointed to her throat, as if indicating she couldn't speak. Mark realized she was likely suffering from shock and dehydration. He gently helped her to her feet and led her out of the pod. Back at his house, Mark settled the alien woman on his living room couch, wrapping her in a warm blanket. He offered her water and some simple food, a piece of bread and some cheese. She ate slowly, cautiously, her eyes never leaving him. Communication was a challenge. Mark tried speaking slowly and clearly, using gestures to convey his meaning. He learned that her name was Lyra, and she was from a planet called Xylos, a world orbiting a distant star. Her ship had malfunctioned, sending her hurtling off course and crash-landing on Earth. Days turned into weeks, and Lyra slowly began to recover. Mark learned more about her and her culture. Xylos was a peaceful planet, its inhabitants deeply connected to nature and possessing advanced scientific knowledge. Lyra, it turned out, was a botanist, studying the unique flora of her world. As Lyra recovered, she began to explore Mark's world with childlike wonder. She was fascinated by the simple things, the way the sun filtered through the trees, the sound of birds singing, the taste of fresh fruit. Mark, in turn, was captivated by her intelligence, her gentle nature, and her unique perspective on life. He showed her his observatory, explaining the wonders of the cosmos, and she shared her knowledge of Xylosian astronomy, revealing constellations and celestial phenomena he had never imagined. A bond began to form between them, a connection that transcended language and cultural barriers. Mark found himself falling in love with Lyra's spirit, her unwavering optimism, and her quiet strength. Lyra, in turn, was drawn to Mark's kindness, his unwavering patience, and his genuine curiosity about her and her world. One evening, as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues, Lyra turned to Mark, her violet eyes filled with emotion. She reached out and gently touched his hand, then spoke, her voice soft and melodic. "Mark, I feel something for you. Something I have never felt before." Mark's heart skipped a beat. He knew he felt the same way, but he had hesitated to express his feelings, unsure of how she would react. He took her hand in his eyes meeting hers. "Lyra," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I love you." Lyra smiled, a radiant smile that lit up her face. She leaned in and kissed him, a gentle kiss that sealed their connection. Their happiness, however, was short-lived. A week later, a sleek black ship descended from the sky, landing near the crash site of Lyra's pod. Xylosian authorities had finally located her. A team of Xylosian officers emerged from the ship, their faces stern and unreadable. They approached Mark's house, their weapons drawn. Mark stepped out to meet them, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew they were here to take Lyra home, and he wasn't sure if he could bear to lose her. The commanding officer, a tall, imposing figure with silver hair, addressed Mark in perfect English. "We are here to retrieve Lyra. She is required back on Xylos." Mark looked at Lyra, his eyes pleading with her. She stepped forward and spoke to the officer in her native language, her voice firm and resolute. The officer listened intently, then nodded slowly. He turned back to Mark and said, "Lyra has explained your relationship. She has requested permission to remain on Earth with you." Mark was stunned. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The officer continued, "The Xylosian Council has granted her request, with certain conditions. You must undergo a period of cultural exchange, learning about Xylosian customs and traditions. And Lyra must continue her research, studying the unique flora of Earth. Are you willing to accept these conditions?" Mark didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "I am willing to do anything to be with Lyra." And so, Mark's life changed forever. He and Lyra embarked on a journey of discovery, learning about each other's worlds and cultures. Mark traveled to Xylos, where he was welcomed with open arms. He learned about their advanced technology, their peaceful society, and their deep connection to the natural world. Lyra, in turn, continued her research on Earth, studying the planet's unique ecosystem and sharing her knowledge with the scientific community. Years passed, and Mark and Lyra built a life together, a life filled with love, laughter, and adventure. They had children who inherited Lyra's violet eyes and Mark's kind heart. They became ambassadors between Earth and Xylos, fostering understanding and cooperation between the two worlds. Mark, the quiet astrophysicist from a small town in New Mexico, had found love in the most unexpected place, with a woman from another world. He had invited a starving alien woman home, never expecting she'd be his future wife. And in doing so, he had not only found his own happiness, but had also helped to bridge the gap between two vastly different civilizations, proving that love and understanding can conquer all, even the vastness of space. Once upon a time, in a quiet little town named Maplewood, there lived a man named Tom. Tom was a kind-hearted person, always looking for ways to help others. He worked as a mechanic at a small garage and spent most of his time fixing cars and chatting with the locals. But Tom always felt like something was missing in his life. He often dreamed of adventure and a world beyond his own. One evening, as Tom was closing up his garage, he noticed something strange in the sky. A bright light zipped across, leaving a shimmering trail behind. He stared up in awe as it swiftly descended and crash-landed nearby, just beyond the edge of town. Curiosity sparked in his heart, and without thinking twice, he grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the site. When Tom arrived at the crash site, he found the remains of a small silver spaceship. He carefully approached it, shining his flashlight around. Suddenly, a door slid open, and out stumbled a woman. She looked unlike anyone Tom had ever seen. Her skin was a lovely shade of blue, and her eyes shimmered like stars. She wore a tight suit that glimmered faintly, and she appeared weak and hungry. "Are you okay?" Tom asked, concerned. The woman looked at him with a mix of surprise and relief. "I am Zyla. I need food." Tom's heart melted. He wanted to help her. "Come with me. I'll take you home." Zyla followed Tom without hesitation. As they walked, she looked around in wonder, fascinated by the trees, streetlights, and animals. Everything seemed new to her. When they reached Tom's cozy home, he quickly prepared a meal for her. He made her a big plate of spaghetti, unsure if she would like it, but he hoped it could fill her empty stomach. Zyla took a hesitant bite, her eyes lighting up with joy. "This is delicious!" she exclaimed. Tom smiled as he watched her eat. It was clear she had not had a good meal in a long time. After finishing her meal, Zyla thanked Tom. "You saved me," she said softly. Over the next few days, Zyla and Tom became close friends. They spent hours talking, sharing stories about their lives. Zyla told Tom about her home planet, Aurora, which was filled with beautiful landscapes and advanced technology. She explained that she had come to Earth to study its life forms, hoping to learn and share knowledge with her people. Tom listened intently, fascinated by the tales of her adventures. He shared stories of his own, detailing his simple life in Maplewood, filled with friends, work, and dreams of exploring the universe. They both laughed, realizing how different yet similar they were. As time passed, Tom noticed he was feeling something deeper for Zyla. She wasn't just a friend. She was special to him. Zyla, too, felt a connection she had never experienced before. Tom's kindness and warmth made her feel safe and loved. She had faced many challenges on her journey, but with Tom, she found comfort and strength. 1 day, while watching the sunset together, Tom turned to Zyla and said, "I know you might have to return to your planet someday, but I want you to know that you mean a lot to me. I never expected to feel this way about anyone." Zyla smiled, her eyes shimmering under the fading sunlight. "I feel the same, Tom. You showed me kindness when I needed it most." They both leaned in closer, and before they knew it, they shared a soft kiss. It felt right, and in that moment they both understood that they had found something beautiful together. Weeks turned into months, and their bond grew stronger. However, Zyla was still aware she might need to leave. One evening she sat down with Tom, looking serious. "Tom, I don't want to leave you, but I cannot stay on Earth forever. My people will miss me, and I have a duty to return to Aurora," she explained. Tom felt a pang in his heart. "I understand, but I don't want to lose you. Is there any way you could stay? Could we find a solution together?" Zyla thought, for a moment. "I could take you to my planet, but it would require a lot of effort. My spaceship needs repairs, and I have to convince my people to accept a human." Tom nodded. "Let's do it. I'm ready for an adventure. I'll help you fix your ship." With renewed energy, Tom and Zyla worked tirelessly together to repair the spaceship. Their teamwork brought them even closer, each hour spent in laughter and learning. Soon, the ship was as good as new. Finally, the day came for Zyla to return, to Aurora, and Tom insisted on coming along. As they prepared to leave, Tom's friends gathered to say goodbye. They were shocked but supportive of his decision, knowing Tom was following his heart. As they ascended into the sky, Tom felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The stars welcomed them as the ship soared through space. Zyla was worried about how her people would react, but she kept glancing at Tom, finding comfort in his presence. Upon arrival on Aurora, the atmosphere was vibrant with colors and the sounds of life. Zyla's people gathered, staring at Tom curiously. Zyla took a deep breath and introduced him. "This is Tom, my friend, and the one I love. I hope you can accept him," she said, her voice strong and clear. The crowd murmured, and Tom's heart raced. But soon, a wise elder stepped forward. He smiled warmly. "If Zyla loves you, then you are welcome. Love knows no boundaries." Relief washed over Tom as he felt accepted. Zyla's people welcomed him with open arms, amazed by the kindness he had shown their beloved Zyla. Over time, Tom found his place among them, learning their ways and sharing his own culture in return. As seasons changed on Aurora, so did the bond between Tom and Zyla. Their love blossomed, proving that sometimes the most unexpected meetings can lead to the greatest adventures. One sunny day, surrounded by blooming flowers, Tom knelt down and proposed to Zyla. "Will you marry me?" he asked, emotions swelling within him. Zyla's eyes sparkled as she joyfully replied, "Yes, 1,000,000 times, yes." And so, they celebrated their love, creating a beautiful life together, bridging two worlds in harmony. Tom had invited a starving alien woman into his life, and she became his future wife, bringing him the adventure he had always dreamed of. And they lived happily ever after, creating a story that would be told for generations, proving that love knows no bounds, not even the stars. The desert wind howled a mournful song around Ben's small house, a lonely tune that mirrored the vast emptiness of his life. He was a simple man, a mechanic by trade, living on the fringes of a forgotten town in Nevada. His days were filled with the clang of metal, the scent of oil, and the quiet solitude he had grown accustomed to after years of being alone. One night, as the moon cast long, eerie shadows across the sand, Ben's life took an unexpected turn. A strange, shimmering light pulsed in the distance, followed by a deafening crash that shook the very foundations of his house. Curiosity overriding caution, Ben grabbed his trusty flashlight and ventured out into the night. He found her amidst the wreckage of a small metallic pod, half buried in the sand. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin was a delicate shade of lavender, her eyes large and luminous, and her frame thin and fragile. She was clearly not from this world. Fear warred with compassion in Ben's heart. She was injured, disoriented, and utterly alone. He couldn't leave her there to die. With a gentle touch, he helped her out of the wreckage, supporting her weight as he led her back to his house. Inside, he cleaned her wounds with water and bandages, offering her what little food he had. She ate with a desperate hunger, her large eyes never leaving his. He tried to communicate, but she only responded with soft, melodic sounds he couldn't understand. Days turned into weeks. The alien woman, whom Ben affectionately named Lyra, slowly recovered. He learned to communicate with her through gestures and drawings, a rudimentary language born of necessity. He discovered that she was a traveler from a distant star system. Her ship damaged by a meteor storm. She was stranded, light years away from home, with no way to contact her people. Ben's initial apprehension melted away as he got to know Lyra. She was intelligent, curious, and possessed a gentle humor that made his heart ache. She marveled at the simplest things: the sunrise, the sound of the wind, the taste of fresh water. He showed her his workshop, explaining the workings of engines and machines. She watched with rapt attention, her mind absorbing information with an astonishing speed. He, in turn, learned about her world, a place of vibrant colors, advanced technology, and a deep connection to nature. She spoke of her family, her friends, and the life she had left behind. He listened, captivated by her stories, feeling a strange longing for a place he had never seen. As they spent more time together, an undeniable bond formed between them. He found himself drawn to her alien beauty, her gentle nature, and her unwavering optimism. She, in turn, seemed to appreciate his kindness, his strength, and his simple way of life. One evening, as they sat outside watching the stars, Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with a soft light. She took his hand, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through his veins. Using a combination of gestures and telepathic images, she conveyed her feelings for him, a love that transcended language and cultural barriers. Ben was stunned. He had never imagined that an alien woman could love him, a simple mechanic from a forgotten town. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw the truth reflected there. He loved her too. He confessed his feelings, his voice thick with emotion. He told her about his lonely life, his hopes and dreams, and his unwavering devotion to her. She listened, her eyes shining with tears. They embraced, a moment of pure connection that defied all logic and reason. In that moment, they were not just a human and an alien, but two souls who had found each other against all odds. But their happiness was short-lived. One day, a sleek, silver spacecraft descended from the sky, landing near Ben's house. Lyra's people had finally found her. A group of aliens emerged from the ship, their faces stern and unreadable. They spoke to Lyra in their native tongue, their voices sharp and commanding. She responded, her tone pleading and desperate. Ben watched, his heart sinking. He knew that Lyra had to go with them, that she belonged with her own kind. But the thought of losing her was unbearable. Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with tears. She explained that her people wanted her to return home, to resume her life among them. But she didn't want to leave him. She loved him, and she wanted to stay. Ben knew what he had to do. He couldn't ask her to abandon her family, her friends, her entire world for him. He had to let her go. With a heavy heart, he told her to go. He told her that he would never forget her, and that he would always cherish the time they had spent together. She embraced him one last time, her tears soaking his shirt. Then, with a final, lingering look, she turned and walked towards the spacecraft. Ben watched as she boarded the ship, his heart breaking with every step she took. As the ship ascended into the sky, he felt a profound sense of loss, a void that he knew would never be filled. He returned to his house, the silence echoing around him. He tried to resume his old life, but everything felt empty and meaningless without Lyra. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Ben continued to work in his workshop, but his heart wasn't in it. He missed Lyra more than words could say. Then, one day the silver spacecraft returned. Ben rushed outside, his heart pounding with hope. The ship landed and Lyra emerged, her face radiant with joy. She ran towards him, throwing her arms around him. She explained that she had convinced her people to let her return, to live her life with him on Earth. She had told them about his kindness, his strength, and his unwavering love for her. They had been skeptical at first, but she had persisted, and eventually they had agreed. Ben was overjoyed. He couldn't believe that Lyra was back, that she had chosen to be with him. They embraced, their love stronger than ever. They knew that their life together wouldn't be easy, that they would face challenges and obstacles along the way, but they were willing to face them together, as long as they had each other. They were an unlikely couple, a human and an alien, from two different worlds. But their love transcended all boundaries, proving that love can conquer anything, even the vastness of space. They built a life together in the small town, their love story becoming a legend. People came from far and wide to see the alien woman who had chosen to live among them, to witness the extraordinary love that had blossomed between two different worlds. Ben and Lyra lived a long and happy life together, their love growing stronger with each passing year. They had children who inherited their mother's alien beauty and their father's human kindness. They taught their children about both their worlds, instilling in them a deep appreciation for diversity and an unwavering belief in the power of love. And so, the mechanic from a forgotten town and the alien woman from a distant star system lived happily ever after, their love story echoing through the ages, a testament to the enduring power of love and the infinite possibilities of the universe. Once upon a time, in a quiet town called Maplewood, lived a young man named Jake. He was a simple guy who worked at a local hardware store. He enjoyed his peaceful life, filled with little adventures like hiking in the nearby woods, fixing things around his house, and spending time with his dog, Max. Jake always looked up at the stars, dreaming of the wide universe beyond. One clear night, while stargazing, something strange happened. A bright light shot across the sky and crashed into the nearby woods. Jake's curiosity piqued, and he grabbed a flashlight and Max and headed towards the crash site. As they reached the clearing, they found a small spacecraft, smoking and damaged. Jake's heart raced as he approached the strange object. Suddenly, a hatch opened, and out stepped a woman unlike anyone Jake had ever seen. She was tall and slim, with skin that shimmered like the night sky. Her eyes were deep pools of violet, and her hair flowed like silver threads. But what caught Jake's attention the most was the look of desperation on her face. She looked weak and scared. "Are you okay?" Jake asked, stepping closer. The woman looked at him with surprise. "I am Naira, from the planet Vexar. I need help." Without thinking, Jake said, "Come to my house. I can help you." Naira smiled weakly, grateful for his kindness. She followed Jake and Max as they made their way back to town. They walked in silence, with Jake occasionally glancing at Naira, wondering what life was like on a different planet. Soon, they reached his cozy home, and Jake ushered her inside. "Make yourself comfortable," Jake said, pointing to the couch. "I'll get you some food." Naira sat down, still looking around the room with curiosity. Jake hurried to the kitchen, hoping he had enough snacks for an alien. He found some bread, cheese, and fruit. He made a small platter and returned to the living room. He placed the platter in front of Naira. "I hope this is okay." Naira looked at the food, confused. "What is this?" "Food," Jake explained. "Eat. You must be hungry." Naira took a piece of fruit and hesitated before tasting it. When she took a bite, her eyes widened. "This is delicious!" she exclaimed, and Jake felt relief wash over him. As she ate, Jake learned more about her. Naira told tales of her planet, filled with vibrant colors and strange creatures. It was a beautiful world, but also dangerous. An enemy race called the Zargots had attacked, forcing her to flee. She had lost her home and was now alone in an unknown place. Jake felt a mix of sadness and admiration as he listened to her stories. He realized that despite her troubles, she had a strong spirit. After finishing the food, Naira looked rejuvenated. "Thank you for your kindness, Jake. I can offer you something in return. I can heal your wounds, the ones of your heart." Jake frowned. "What do you mean?" "I sense you have suffered. I can help you feel joy again," Naira said. Somehow her words felt true. Jake had been feeling lost and lonely for quite some time. Jake decided to open up. He shared about his tough childhood, losing his parents, and how he always felt alone. Neera listened intently, her eyes filled with understanding. "You are stronger than you know, Jake," she said softly. "Kindness shows strength. It is the bond between us." As the night progressed, they talked and laughed. Jake wondered how he could feel so connected to someone he just met. The hours slipped away, and soon, they both realized it was getting late. "You can stay here tonight," Jake offered. Neera nodded gratefully and lay down on the couch. Jake made sure she was comfortable before heading to bed, his mind racing with thoughts of her. Days turned into weeks, and their friendship blossomed. Neera helped Jake with his insecurities, overcoming fears that had held him back for so long. He began to feel happier, more confident. In return, Jake helped Neera learn about Earth, teaching her about human customs, music, and movies. As they spent time together, Jake couldn't help but notice how beautiful Neera was. She was strong and wise, but also very gentle. They would watch the stars at night, and Jake often found himself hoping she would stay forever. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Jake took a deep breath. "Neera, I know we come from different worlds, literally, but I feel something special between us. I don't want you to leave." Neera looked at him with soft eyes. "I feel it too. You have brought light into my life." Jake felt hopeful. "Would you be my girlfriend?" With a smile, Neera replied, "Yes, I would love that." As their relationship grew, word about Neera spread through the small town. Some people were skeptical, but most welcomed her. They saw how happy she made Jake, and how he brought balance back into her life. One day, the Zargots discovered where Neera was hiding. They sent a distress signal, launching an attack on Earth. When the news reached Jake and Neera, they were terrified. The world seemed dark and uncertain, but Neera stood strong. "I will not run again. I will protect our home." With Jake's support, they rallied the townsfolk. Together, they formed an alliance, ready to face the invading force. Jake and Neera led the group, using their combined strengths. They fought bravely, and with clever strategy, they managed to fend off the attackers. In the aftermath, Maplewood was forever changed. The town flourished, becoming a symbol of unity between Earth and Vexar. Jake and Neera's love grew even deeper. One quiet evening, under the stars where they first met, Jake knelt before Neera. "Will you make me the happiest man on Earth and marry me?" With a radiant smile, Neera replied, "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." From that day on, they built a life together, embracing the extraordinary journey that brought them from two different worlds to one united future. Jake had invited a starving alien woman home, but he never expected she would become the love of his life. The neon lights of Neo-Kyoto flickered across Kenji's face as he hurried home, the remnants of a late shift clinging to him like the city's humid air. He clutched a bento box, a meager dinner he'd skipped lunch to afford. As he turned a corner, a sight stopped him dead in his tracks. Huddled in a doorway, shivering despite the late summer heat, was a figure unlike any he'd ever seen. She was tall, slender, with skin like polished obsidian. Large silver eyes, filled with a profound sadness, dominated her face. Her clothes, what was left of them, were clearly not of earthly make, tattered and shimmering with an alien technology. It was obvious, even to Kenji, a simple programmer, that she was not from around here. He hesitated. Fear warred with an overwhelming sense of pity. Stories of alien encounters were common, often ending badly. But the sheer vulnerability radiating from her shattered his apprehension. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, her eyes widening slightly. She tilted her head, as if trying to decipher his words. "Hungry," she rasped, the word sounding strange and guttural, yet understandable. Kenji's heart clenched. He offered her the bento box. "Here, this is all I have." She regarded the box with suspicion for a moment, then cautiously opened it. Her eyes lit up as she inhaled the aroma of teriyaki chicken and rice. She ate with a desperate hunger that confirmed her plight. When she finished, she looked at Kenji, her silver eyes filled with gratitude. She spoke, a string of melodic sounds he couldn't understand, but somehow he knew she was thanking him, and the idea, impulsive and perhaps foolish, bloomed in Kenji's mind. "Come with me," he said, gesturing towards his small apartment. "I have more food, and a warm place to stay." She hesitated, looking around as if expecting danger. But the genuine concern in Kenji's eyes seemed to reassure her. She nodded, slowly. His apartment was cramped, barely bigger than a storage unit, but it was clean and safe. He offered her a spare futon and rummaged through his meager pantry, finding some instant noodles and a can of fruit. As she ate, Kenji tried to communicate, using simple gestures and drawings. He learned her name was Lyra, and she was a traveler, stranded on Earth after her ship malfunctioned. She spoke of stars and nebulae, of a home world light years away, with a wistful longing that tugged at Kenji's heart. Days turned into weeks. Kenji helped Lyra as best he could, sharing his food, his clothes, his life. He learned more about her gentle nature, her sharp intelligence, her surprising sense of humor. He discovered she was a scientist, a botanist, studying the flora of different planets. He was captivated by her stories, by her alien perspective on the world. Lyra, in turn, was fascinated by Kenji. She observed him with an unwavering curiosity, studying his habits, his emotions, his very human flaws. She saw his kindness, his generosity, his quiet strength. She found herself drawn to his gentle spirit, a stark contrast to the harsh realities of her situation. As they spent more time together, a connection formed between them, a bond that transcended language and culture. Kenji found himself falling in love with this alien woman, with her otherworldly beauty and her gentle soul. He knew it was crazy, that it was impossible, but he couldn't deny the feelings that bloomed within him. Lyra, too, felt a pull towards Kenji, a warmth she had never experienced before. She had traveled to countless worlds, met beings of unimaginable diversity, but none had touched her heart like this simple, kind man. One evening, as they sat on his tiny balcony, watching the neon lights paint the night sky, Kenji confessed his feelings. He stumbled over his words, unsure how to express the depth of his emotions. Lyra listened patiently, her silver eyes shining in the dim light. When he finished, she reached out and gently touched his face. "Kenji," she said, her voice soft and melodic, "I don't fully understand human emotions, but I know this. I care for you deeply, more than I ever thought possible." Her words filled him with hope, a fragile, flickering flame in the darkness. He took her hand, his heart pounding in his chest. Their relationship was a secret, hidden from the prying eyes of the world. They knew that if Lyra's existence was revealed, she would be taken away, studied, dissected. They lived in fear, but they also lived in a bubble of love, cherishing every moment they had together. One day, Lyra told Kenji she had found a way to contact her people. She had been working in secret, using salvaged components from her ship to build a makeshift transmitter. It was a long shot, but it was their only hope. The day they activated the transmitter, the air crackled with energy. Lyra spoke in her native tongue, her voice filled with urgency. Kenji watched, his heart in his throat, praying for a miracle. After what seemed like an eternity, Lyra turned to him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "They're coming," she said. "They're sending a ship to retrieve me." Relief washed over Kenji, followed by a sharp pang of sadness. He was happy for Lyra, but the thought of her leaving tore at his heart. "What will you do?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with a profound sadness. "I don't know," she said. "I don't want to leave." But I can't stay here forever." The day the ship arrived was bittersweet. It descended from the sky, a sleek silver craft that dwarfed the surrounding buildings. Lyra stood on the balcony, her hand in Kenji's, tears streaming down her face. "Come with me," she said, her voice pleading. "Come back to my world. Start a new life with me." Kenji hesitated. He had never imagined leaving Earth, leaving his family, his friends, everything he knew. But he couldn't bear the thought of losing Lyra. He looked into her silver eyes, saw the love and hope reflected there, and made his decision. "Yes," he said. "I'll go with you." He packed a small bag, filled with the few possessions he couldn't bear to leave behind. He said goodbye to his family, telling them he was leaving the country for a new job. He couldn't tell them the truth. Not yet. As they boarded the ship, Kenji looked back at the city, at the neon lights that had once defined his world. He was leaving everything behind, venturing into the unknown. But he wasn't afraid. He had Lyra by his side, and that was all that mattered. Years later, Kenji and Lyra were living on her homeworld, a vibrant planet teeming with exotic flora and fauna. Kenji had learned her language, adapted to her culture, and found a new purpose in life. He worked alongside Lyra, studying the plants of her world, contributing his own unique perspective to her research. They were married in a traditional ceremony, surrounded by Lyra's family and friends. Kenji, the simple programmer from Neo-Kyoto, had become a part of something extraordinary, a testament to the power of love and the boundless possibilities of the universe. He never expected that inviting a starving alien woman home would lead to his future wife, but he was grateful for his kind heart. Their love story was a whisper among the stars, a legend that spanned galaxies, a love story that proved that even the most different beings could find common ground and build a life together. Once upon a time, in a quiet town called Maplewood, there lived a young man named Jake. Jake was a kind-hearted soul with a love for adventure and all things science fiction. He worked at a local bookstore where he spent his days surrounded by stories of heroes, aliens, and uncharted worlds. But Jake always felt that his life was missing something exciting. Little did he know that the adventure he sought was about to knock on his door. One chilly evening, while Jake was walking home from work, he noticed a strange light in the sky. It flickered and danced like a star, but was much closer than the distant twinkle. Intrigued, he followed the light, which led him to the old Maplewood Park. There, he found a small, shiny spaceship hidden behind the trees. He glanced around nervously, making sure no one was watching. Suddenly, a door on the spaceship opened, and out stepped a slender figure. It was a woman, but unlike any woman he had ever seen. She had green skin that shimmered like emeralds, and long silver hair that flowed around her like mist. Her eyes were large and bright, shining with curiosity and a hint of fear. Jake's heart raced. He had just met an alien. "Hello," she said in a soft, melodic voice. "I am Lyra, from the planet Viridian. I'm lost." She looked weak and frail, and Jake noticed her thin arms and the way she swayed slightly on her feet. She seemed to be starving. Without thinking, Jake blurted out, "Would you like to come to my house? I can make you something to eat." Lyra nodded eagerly, her eyes lighting up at the mention of food. Jake took her hand, and together they walked back to his home, which was a cozy little place filled with books and trinkets he had collected over the years. Once inside, Jake swiftly prepared a simple meal with pasta and vegetables. As they ate, Lyra spoke about her home. "Viridian is beautiful, filled with lush forests and glowing lakes," she said. "But my ship malfunctioned, and I crash-landed here. I didn't have much food or time. Jake listened, fascinated by her tales of adventure and mystery. They laughed and shared stories, and as the night wore on, a bond began to grow between them. Slowly, Jake realized he was falling for this alien woman. She was kind, curious, and filled with a spark he had never seen before. After dinner, Jake showed Lyra his collection of books. She picked up a science fiction novel and flipped through the pages. "These stories are amazing," she said, her eyes wide with wonder. "They make me feel less alone." As the sky darkened and stars filled the night, Jake felt a twinge of sadness. "What will you do now?" he asked quietly. Lyra looked down, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I need to fix my ship and return home, but it's complicated. I'm afraid I'll never be able to leave this planet." Jake's heart sank. He didn't want her to go. He didn't want this magical evening to end. "You can stay here," he suggested impulsively. "I can help you find a way to repair your ship." Lyra glanced up, her eyes hopeful. "You would do that for me?" "Of course," Jake replied. "You're not just an alien to me. You're my friend." A soft smile crept across her face, and she reached out to touch his hand. In that moment, Jake felt a warmth that spread through him, making him believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something wonderful. For weeks, they worked together, gathering parts and tools to fix Lyra's ship. Jake learned to navigate the complexities of her alien technology, while Lyra taught him about her culture and the ways of the universe. They spent long nights under the stars, dreaming of adventures and sharing their hopes. As they worked, their friendship blossomed into a deep love. But as the days passed, Jake noticed a change in Lyra. She became more withdrawn, staring out the window at the stars with a wistful look in her eyes. One evening, filled with concern, Jake asked, "What's wrong?" "I miss my home," she admitted. "I love this world and you, but I feel a pull to return. It's where I belong." Jake felt his heart break, but knew that he couldn't hold her back. "You should go home, Lyra. I will always remember you. You will always be my star." Lyra shook her head, tears in her eyes. "I don't want to leave you, Jake." He took her hands in his and said softly, "You have to follow your heart." That night, after a long talk, they agreed to finish repairing her ship. Jake felt like he was preparing to say goodbye to a part of himself, but he also knew that love sometimes means letting go. Finally, the day came when her ship was ready. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, Jake and Lyra stood side by side, gazing at her spaceship. He felt a mix of pride in what they accomplished and sadness in knowing she would soon be gone. Lyra turned to him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You have changed my life, Jake. I wish you could come with me." Jake swallowed hard. "I would follow you anywhere, but you need to be with your people, Lyra. Go be the star you are meant to be." With a heavy heart, Lyra stepped into her ship. Jake watched as she powered it up, the machine humming to life. They both knew this was the end, but their love would never fade. As the ship lifted into the sky, Lyra's face filled the window for one last moment. She mouthed the words, "I love you," and Jake could only smile through his tears. With a flash of light, she soared into the night, a shining star heading homeward. Jake stood there long after she disappeared, feeling a mix of loss and hope. He was different now. He had loved an alien. As he walked back into his house, he knew that their paths would cross again one day, for their love was written in the stars. The flickering neon sign of Joe's Diner cast a lonely glow on the rain-slicked street. Inside, Mark, a kind-hearted but somewhat lonely astrophysicist, nursed a cup of lukewarm coffee. He was lost in thought, replaying the garbled message he'd intercepted on his radio telescope earlier that evening. It sounded alien, distressed, and undeniably close. Suddenly, the diner door chimed, and a figure stumbled inside. She was tall and slender, with skin that shimmered like polished obsidian. Her eyes, large and luminous, held an ancient sadness. She was dressed in tattered rags that looked vaguely metallic, and she shivered uncontrollably. Everyone in the diner stared, but Mark felt a surge of empathy. This was no ordinary woman. This was the source of the distress signal. He approached her cautiously. "Are you all right? Can I help you?" The woman looked at him, confusion clouding her features. She spoke, and the sound was like wind chimes in a storm. "Hungry," she managed, the word broken and unfamiliar. Mark understood. He gestured to a vacant booth. "Come, sit. I'll get you something to eat." He ordered her a plate of Joe's famous blueberry pancakes, and she devoured them with an intensity that both alarmed and touched him. As she ate, Mark observed her. Her movements were graceful, almost regal, despite her disheveled appearance. There was a quiet dignity about her that intrigued him. When she finished, she looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice a little stronger now. "My name, Lyra." "Mark," he replied, offering a gentle smile. "So, Lyra, where are you from?" Lyra hesitated, then looked around the diner nervously. "Far, very far." Mark, remembering the distress signal, decided to take a leap of faith. "Are you from another planet?" Lyra's eyes widened. She nodded slowly. "Yes, my ship crashed. I am alone." Mark's mind raced. He was a scientist, a man of logic, yet here he was, talking to a stranded alien in a roadside diner. He knew he should call the authorities, but something held him back. He couldn't bear the thought of Lyra being dissected in some government lab. "Look," he said, making a decision. "It's late and you're exhausted. Come home with me. You can rest, and we can figure things out in the morning." Lyra looked at him, suspicion warring with hope in her eyes. After a moment, she nodded. "Okay." Mark lived in a small, cluttered house on the outskirts of town. He led Lyra inside, feeling a strange mix of excitement and trepidation. He showed her to the guest room, which was usually reserved for his eccentric Aunt Mildred's occasional visits. "There's a bathroom through that door," he said. "I'll find you something to wear. My clothes might be a bit big, but it's better than those rags." He rummaged through his closet and found an old flannel shirt and a pair of sweatpants. When he returned, Lyra was standing by the window, gazing at the stars. "They are different here," she said softly. "Not as vibrant." Mark felt a pang of sympathy. She must be so homesick. "Get some sleep," he said. "We'll talk in the morning." He left her alone and went to his study, where he pulled out his research notes and the recording of the distress signal. He spent hours analyzing it, trying to decipher its meaning. He discovered that the signal contained not only a plea for help, but also a complex mathematical equation, an equation that, he realized with a jolt, could revolutionize interstellar travel. The next morning, Mark found Lyra in the kitchen, attempting to make coffee. The scene was comical. She was surrounded by coffee grounds and looked utterly bewildered. "Let me help you with that," he said, chuckling. Over breakfast, Mark learned more about Lyra and her people, the Zidonians. They were a peaceful race of scientists and explorers, dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge. Their home planet, Zidon, was a lush, vibrant world teeming with life. Lyra was a navigator on a research vessel that had been studying a newly discovered star system when a meteor storm had crippled their ship, sending it hurtling off course. "I must find a way to contact my people," Lyra said, her voice filled with urgency. "They will be worried." Mark knew that contacting Zidon would be a monumental task. His radio telescope was powerful, but it wasn't designed for interstellar communication. However, he couldn't refuse her. He had to try. Days turned into weeks as Mark and Lyra worked together, modifying his equipment and refining the distress signal. They spent hours poring over star charts, calculating trajectories, and troubleshooting technical glitches. As they worked, they grew closer. Mark was captivated by Lyra's intelligence, her resilience, and her gentle humor. Lyra, in turn, was drawn to Mark's kindness, his unwavering support, and his genuine curiosity about her world. One evening, as they were taking a break from their work, Lyra turned to Mark, her eyes filled with emotion. "You are a good man, Mark," she said. "You have helped me so much. I will never forget your kindness." Mark felt his heart swell. "I just want to help you get home, Lyra." Lyra smiled sadly. "Home? I do not know if I will ever see Zidon again. But even if I do not, I will always remember you and this strange, wonderful planet." Suddenly, the radio telescope crackled to life. A clear, strong signal filled the room. It was Zidonian. "Lyra, is that you?" A voice boomed. Lyra gasped. "Father, I am here. I am safe." Tears streamed down Lyra's face as she spoke to her father, explaining what had happened and thanking Mark for his help. Her father assured her that a rescue ship was on its way and would arrive within a few days. As the days passed, Mark felt a growing sense of dread. He knew that once Lyra was rescued, she would return to Zidon, and he would never see her again. He tried to push the thought away, but it haunted him. The day the rescue ship arrived, Mark stood with Lyra on the hill overlooking his house. The ship, a sleek, silver vessel, descended from the clouds, casting a long shadow over the landscape. Lyra turned to Mark, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Mark," she said. "You saved my life. You gave me hope when I had none. I will miss you." Mark took her hand. "I'll miss you too, Lyra. More than you know." As Lyra prepared to board the ship, she turned back to Mark one last time. "Mark," she said, "my father wishes to express his gratitude in person. He has extended an invitation for you to visit Zidon as a guest of our family." Mark was stunned. "Visit Zidon, but I'm just a simple astrophysicist from Earth." Lyra smiled. "You are more than that, Mark. You are a friend, a hero, and someone very special to me." A few weeks later, Mark found himself standing on the surface of Zidon, surrounded by lush vegetation and alien creatures. He was introduced to Lyra's family, who welcomed him with open arms. He spent his days exploring the planet, learning about Zidonian culture, and sharing his knowledge of Earth. One evening, as he and Lyra were strolling through a moonlit garden, Lyra stopped and turned to him, her eyes shining. "Mark," she said, "I have something to ask you." She took his hand and looked at him with a love that transcended worlds. "Stay here, Mark. Stay with me. Become a part of my world. Marry me." Mark's heart soared. He had never imagined that he, a lonely astrophysicist from Earth, could find love with an alien woman from another planet. But here he was, standing on Zidon, about to embark on the greatest adventure of his life. "Yes, Lyra," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." And so Mark, the kind-hearted astrophysicist, married Lyra, the stranded, alien woman, and they lived happily ever after on Zidon, proving that love knows no boundaries, not even the vast expanse of space. He never expected she'd be his future wife. He also became a bridge between two worlds, fostering understanding and cooperation between Earth and Zidon, all thanks to a chance encounter and a shared plate of blueberry pancakes.